as you grow, you don't know what you don't know. And obviously, like you develop your own belief system, and there are a lot of false beliefs along the way that you can easily get entangled with health and like what you should be doing and how you should be doing it. Some of it is like how we grew up, you know, can't fight that, right? Like that's the main. So that's really hard to also come to realizations about, you know, what you need to change and how, and well, I believe this all my life and now I don't, or I can't, or shouldn't, you know, it's an interesting way of thinking it, but it helps people reflect also on, you know, how they grew up and how they live their lives really do affect them later on in life. And it really helps to, when you break the mindset of that and offer, you know, staying open. And I always say like to surrender to the process, and resist it and just keep, you know, going through. And that's, again, yourself trying to remain in its comfort zone and just breaking down those barriers to where once you do surrender and trust the process, then it's like, oh, game over. And you can bring everything in for yourself.
Welcome to episode 52 of the Fifi Uncensored podcast with my guest, Rachel Sigl from Morph Method, an online coaching health and wellness program that is off the charts. She and her partner, Jake Platt, are really extraordinary experts at helping people 40 and over really get their healthiest version of themselves, starting with their mindset and the 6 pillars it takes to accomplish that. And it's all about trusting oneself. It is such a fascinating conversation that she and I have going back and forth. And I've not only learned so much from her when we had this conversation, but the things that I've learned from her since and on my own personal journey and how I relate to it. And I know if that is my experience, that will be many other people's experiences. So I want to say grab the coffee and cannoli, but instead I'm going to say grab your coffee and take a listen and sit down and really absorb what it is that we're talking about and enjoy and how you can apply this to your everyday life. Because I'm telling you, I'm doing it and it's changing my life. And I'm so, so excited to share Rachel Sigl with all of you. So pull up that log, sit around the campfire, because here we go.
Hi, ma'am.
Hey, hi, girl.
You look great.
Aw, thank you. Thank you. Well, you know, let's talk about the internet. Funny enough, I mean, we just all assume that everybody's got it, and they just don't.
I know.
They just don't.
I know, especially when you work from home, like we have to bring in, you know, got the boosters, making sure everything's good, just in case you're out in the country.
Yeah, well, and not everybody has satellite dishes or whatever the hell that they need to get what they need. And people don't realize, like, not every place is gonna function accordingly.
Totally.
So, all right, well, let's just kick this off.
Made it.
And I would just want to say, Rachel Sigl, thank you so much for taking the time to join me again. We did this in 2021, like November-ish, December-ish, when I was early on in my podcast.
That's right.
This will probably be like in the low 50s of podcast releases. Can you believe it?
That's pretty good. Yes.
It's pretty crazy. Every Monday dropped. Thank you.
That's awesome. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you know, it's a funny thing that we'll get into, but first off, let's just say that you're a health and wellness coach. You and your partner, Jake Platt, do transform people's lives by your expertise and approach to how you take care of your clients and inspire them to take action with their lives to build healthy futures for themselves. And we'll get into that. But regarding the podcast, it's a interesting application. And one of the many things that you guys, while we talked the first time, as I sat here, like 36 to 40 plus pounds heavier, to say that, we all know the concepts of consistency and showing up and taking action. And it all starts with making a decision and all those things. But in truth, the only people that can do it are yourselves. You can have the coaches, you can have accountability, you can have all the right things, bells and whistles around you, but you just gotta have the mindset.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so speaking of, let's just kick it off with mindset, because you're dealing with people who are fully ingrained in their lifestyles, in their habits, in their process, in their choices, in their decisions, in their stubbornness, in their, hey man, I'm old enough, don't tell me what to do.
100%. Well, it's more about too, like, as you grow, you don't know what you don't know. And obviously, like, you develop your own belief system, and there are a lot of false beliefs along the way that you can easily get entangled with health and like what you should be doing and how you should be doing it. Some of it is like how we grew up, can't fight that, right? Like that's the main. So that's really hard to also come to realizations about, what you need to change and how, and I believe this all my life and now I don't, or I can't, or shouldn't, it's an interesting way of thinking it, but it helps people reflect also on, how they grew up and how they live their lives really do affect them later on in life. And it really helps to, when you break the mindset of that and offer, staying open. And I always say, like, to surrender to the process and resist it and just keep, going through. And that's, again, yourself trying to remain in its comfort zone and just breaking down those barriers to where once you do surrender and trust the process, then it's like, oh, game over. And you can bring everything in for yourself.
And that is such a powerful statement, because it basically allows for magnetizing and drawing in anything that's possible in life that you desire. And, we can all experience success.
Yeah.
And you can have success over here, but the 10 other things over there, you're like, hasn't worked out yet, or you don't believe. And why is it that one place it works and the other 10 categories it might not? And look, we all know extremely successful business people who don't have successful partnerships and successful health and all the, like, so, so we can say, oh, that guy or that gal over there is like multi bazillionaire, but none of this other stuff is intact. Or this person is strikingly beautiful and look, they get to work out every day and there's nothing hanging off or whatever, and they can, they're like the perfect individual to be dressed and created product on. But they're dysfunctional in every other aspect of their life. So it's not a judgment, it's a realization and honest conversation that nobody has their shit all together. It is a process.
100%. And we always say, when people use food and fitness as the vehicles, right? So those are very easy to like, well, I can lose 10 pounds in like 10 days if I just don't eat anything or whatever. Fine. You could, because it's a calorie game at that point, but you're still going to always go back to the way you were until you change that fully over. That's all it is. Right. So, but once you do get there, and then using the food and fitness recovery properly into what your goals are, whatever they are, then your whole journey is all paved out for you.
So that's also a very interesting conversation, because, I've been asked a lot, well, what are you doing? You taking pills? You like, I'm like, what? I mean, and somebody asked me, "Are you offended by that question?" I said, "Actually, I am. I don't. I guess that's how you could state it. Yeah, I'm kind of offended,
Yeah.
but not offended like, oh, that therefore I can't have this conversation. No, it's just no. I've worked hard in changing. Look at, we talked about this before. I've lost weight plenty of times. I've been losing weight since I was 8 years old. We talked about this.
Yep.
What's different today versus all the other times that led up to it? I'll be really honest. First off, I've admitted I'm an emotional person when it comes to hand to mouth. This is a relationship that they have on their own.
Sure.
I can almost like I literally used to say, God, long before I ever tried pot, I was probably stoned. I didn't even know it. As a 3-year-old kid, I was just like in a haze of how can I nurture little Felicia?
Sure.
You don't even realize it's not that you don't realize, it's not like I was sleepwalking, but you're there and this stuff is already in your mouth before you even are gaining control over the action.
Yep.
And it's interesting because all those times leading up to this now situation where I'm in a journey of losing weight, and getting to become the fine wine that I always imagined myself to become.
Oh, you are. Yes.
Thank you. So I realized that every time I did lose that weight, what really affected me was not the losing the weight. It was the response afterwards that really, messed with my head.
Yeah.
To the point where I went back into protection mode. And I went, oh, well, if that's how you're going to respond, and you didn't notice me when I was 30, 40 pounds heavier. Right. And now all of a sudden I'm all that in a slice of bread to you. I mean, and I'm the same person.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. Like it just, and whatever it was, and then more recently with health, with the thyroid cancer and stuff. And these are not excuses. These are just like life chapters.
Yeah.
What I know today, though, and what I will hold myself accountable to, is I won't allow myself, because I've matured through those experiences, to be able to see all of that journey, to say, I'm no longer going to give into that. I'm no longer going to give that importance. I'm no longer going to live in that either limited belief on other people's part, or just create my own sense of, hey, Felicia, this is your journey.
New story.
This is my story. Yeah. Totally. And however anybody else is affected, whether they're threatened or, oh my God, how did she do it? Or like, it will come back down to, as I would say, and have I said to others, is all starts with your mindset and making a decision.
Totally. Well, it's very easy that's why people do it, right? That's why they take the pills, because it's easy, or it's a quick fix, and it's just like temporary instant gratification, which everybody strives for. Like, obviously, if yesterday was this, they're going to take it, right? But it's like you said, so you went through all the process of losing the weight, but still the other stuff was still there. So emotional eating is super real, especially when people are stressed, it ramps up, or you go through life situations. It's like those parts of it just, that's it. You're just stressed. You're trying to comfort, so that's a very heavy and real attachment, which is it's really common, not talked about a lot very much, but we have a lot of clients and just our business over the years that literally go through it, men and women, both. So totally. Yeah. So once that's why it's so nice for us that we kind of combat life coaching along with it all, because you have to take care of that part of it if you really want change. And Jake and I are very much like, we're not here for like fun necessarily, for lack of a better term. We're not here for like a season. We want you to really like get down to your stuff, really concentrating, being mindful throughout the process. And that's what coaching helps throughout, is like the obstacles, the switching the negative thoughts, you know, and making sure you're always thinking it not to a fault positively, but handling those emotions properly and reacting when they do come up for you so they don't tank you consistently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And, you know, it's interesting because I don't think I ever really framed it to myself as an emotional eater. I just framed it as, you know, you grew up in a Sicilian Jewish household. This is just what you do. You know, you eat for happy, you eat for sad. And as we went back to the beginning of the conversation, you know, it's what you learn. And listen, I think I may or may not have said it in our first interview. I get that I was really, really lucky to never know what it was like to be hungry. And when I say that with gratitude that we never starved. We were never in a position where we didn't know where our next meal was coming from. And that's a very, very real, conscious conversation.
For sure. Yes.
Right? And with that said, I don't take that lightly. I don't take that lightly at all. And with that said, I also realized that I never learned, because it was used as a way of showing love, of a way of nurturing, of a way of combined bonding, integrating, conversing, all the things that I have pleasurable experiences aligned with, that I also realized that it didn't help me under the circumstances, sadly. And therefore it became something that I never, you know, and I know my story has got to be a lot of people's story, that I never got to, no matter how much I was athletic or how many times I did lose the weight, I was never at ease. It was one of the things that hung over me. So it didn't matter how well I did in school or how well I did in music, how well I did in theater. There was always this thing cloaked over me psychologically that, you know, I wasn't good enough. And I think we talked about that. And then getting comfortable in those brief moments when you did lose the weight, where you could capture it long enough to get into a more this is who I am versus that's who I am definition.
100%. And then that whole other person, like we always say, like your future self, right? You want to kill off your old self, but that old self tries to come out as much as possible because it is your comfort zone and it is like your place back to. Yeah, absolutely. Makes total sense.
Yeah, it's programming for sure. And to a fault, like self-sabotage is not something anybody wants to admit that they have it within them. But I don't care how successful you are, you know, in life.
Yeah.
Everybody has their destructive venue that, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And even, you know, it's super hard to, when you're in your own path and you're in your own day-to-day life, it's super hard to recognize what self-sabotaging is and how you're actually doing it to yourself. And like, what does that look like? Is it like I ate 3 portions of breakfast, or is it like I'm stressed out, so I'm going to go freaking binge on a, you know, whatever cake or brownie, whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't recognize those habits as self-sabotage. So they're like, oh, well, you just kill off the brownie, or, you know what I mean? But that's not necessarily the answer. It's why.
No. And it's interesting because several people have, you know, definitely reached out like, hey, what are you doing? Because I think, you know, I took the quiet road. I'm not making some major announcement that I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden these photos start showing up and look at, more to the point, you know, one of the reasons why we originally connected was because I was starting an athleisure company.
100%.
I started an athleisure company that I was like almost 200 pounds at, you know, and I started it proudly because I knew we had an all-inclusive line and women of all sizes should be able to feel comfortable and feel good and look good in their body. And I still feel that way, very, very much so.
Yeah.
But I know personally, I wasn't feeling my best and I wasn't looking my best. And again, that's still a process and it's not, It's not something that I think that doesn't matter who or what you are and what size
Mm-hmm.
you are. We all deal with that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, as I'm shifting, be in this, oh, so therefore I'm no longer this. No. On the contrary, what I am today is somebody who now feels comfortable tucking in my shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yes. But people like to put you in a different box.
Yeah.
Big time, and it's when you address it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very interesting how we are as animals in society.
Mm-hmm.
And it is and I read this article recently, similar to what I just shared with you about the different stages of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when people all of a sudden, I mean, I'll never forget, I was 18, my freshman year of college. I was already on this art and pre-med path. And I'm in an art class that literally went from the first semester to second semester. And between that November and that February, I had dropped 30 pounds. I'd gone from 185 pounds to 155. So I'm literally like the weight I am now.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, there was this guy that I thought was super handsome. Didn't know that I even existed.
Sure.
All of a sudden that February, it was like, hey, hi, how's it going? Bah, 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 bah. And I was just like, what? Wait a minute. I've been like literally right here, right next to you this whole time.
100%.
And anyhow, so the article was talking about the psychology behind that and who we are as animals, as human beings, and very much along the lines of what I've talked about a lot. But now being where I'm at right now, it really like brought that up again because right? Because now people are like, well, wait a minute, isn't she supposed to look like a middle-aged dowdy woman? And I'm like, no, motherfucker, I'm not.
I will show you.
Actually, that's not who I am.
Exactly. Especially in your industry that you work in, and how often and what it's obvious. I'm sure it's emphasized over there to like, so I could see how the response for you would be larger, just being around the people that you are around most of the time too.
Yeah. And that is like, it's such a confusing environment to begin with. Like, on one hand, I think you should look presentable and good. But on the other hand, a lot of my peers, I hate to say it, they do not present themselves well. And it depends upon what category they're in. And then maybe, God forbid, you do present yourself too well, then that's a whole nother conversation and category and issue. And it's like, this is why.
I know.
Are you kidding me right now?
No, it's true. It's like, just leave me alone. I'm going to do my work. I'm going to go my job. I'm doing my thing, and then bounce,
then bounce. I'm not interested in your man. I'm not interested in this stuff. I don't care if your guy thinks, whatever. Like, I'm just here to do this.
Totally.
In and out.
We've talked about it before. Like, when you change into the person you want to become, or into your, your being that you are in a process of, like, the people that stay with you, those are the ones that are going to carry into the future anyways, so misery loves company. So they got to go.
They really, really do.
Yeah.
So, so let's just, I want to kind of reflect about yourself and how this all got started for you. Even though we talked about it, I want to, because we were talking with Jake and yourself, and this is girl talk now. Yeah. So we love Jake. We love Jake, but this is the Rachel and Felicia show. What?
He's always here somewhere, but it's fine.
Yeah. Oh no. He could be right next to you for all I know, and I would be all about that.
No, I was like, get out of here. He's too loud. It's Jersey. It's too loud. I can't.
God, I love that. So going back to you and this journey of you becoming the woman that you are and the career that you've taken, That all started when for you in your mind?
I started training and coaching probably in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 38 now. So I was just starting off too. And I was into the world of, back then it was a lot of like weightlifting, fitness. It was very oriented. It was around there. It was around that wheelhouse. Right. But for me, which was great, it's just basic training to kind of get your feet wet to start in the industry. And at the places I worked at, it was totally fine. It was just open gyms, just taking on clients, but I got rather bored and I'm like, I need my own thing. I need to build my own. I just want my own stuff and figure out my own path for the clients was more so my issue. Cause people try to box you a lot, wherever you want to be, how you want to train. Like, this is what you do. And you're like, okay, well, I must go. So probably opened my own shop I was like 25, probably 26 at this point. And going through a really large back injury, like lights out, very young for that to happen. But had four bulging discs in my back and my leg was numb for about 3 days. And I was kind of like, I don't even know what this is. So there was no real pain per se. But I manually fixed it. I did not want to go through surgery or any weird stuff. So just being literally in appointments for about 2 years and chiropractic work and really self-healing stuff. But that's when I pointed in the direction. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to the Pilates area of fitness, just because it was so much it had a lot of natural building foundational movements, obviously. So when you do go into weight like that, us ladies and men can advance easy just when you have that built-in system already. So that took out the next 10 years of my career because I was like deep into that. I was like every certification, doing my own show, training everybody on my own. It was awesome. So that was really, and I healed myself. So I was like, okay, well, it can be done. So, but there's lessons to be learned along the way. There's so much overtraining you can happen there. If you're not managing it, it's so easy to go get injured and just kind of halt your progress without you even knowing. Like to this day, nobody knows what happened, what caused it, but from there, 10 years in, I was at the pinnacle and now having my own machines and Pilates and things like that. And then I got into the Legray method. Are you familiar?
I am not familiar with that. What am I missing?
Sebastian Legray. He's actually founded in Hollywood. He's really awesome. Yeah. So he developed this. It's almost like a hybrid Pilates. Like a Pilates on steroids, because it is not your mother's Pilates class anymore. I actually had like a lot of my pro athletes start doing it. Just because it was such a nice balance between weights and complementary core work, but strengthening from the inside out. It was very nice.
Amazing.
Loved it. And I kind of capped out at my Pilates career. I capped out. I was like, it's either going to be opening up a studio of my own or we're going to move on to something else. So that kind of led me into the world of yoga, which is a recovery system for professional athletes like NFL, NBA, hockey, all of that. So that's strictly the class it was in at that point, coming from Canada. And I was in that space for about 3 years and learned a lot about just traveling to different teams and kind of that routine and developing it. That side of recovery for people is game changing, especially as you age.
Yeah, I bet, especially with all the injuries that all those athletes go through with the impact and trying to stay in the game, and then what happens to that body after their professional career.
Exactly. So bringing that in was awesome. Like every team we worked with was very much like open arms, like, yes, because you can't really fight that type of science. And even it transcended through other sports. It wasn't just like football or baseball. It was the professional soccer. It was over in the UK. It was really because when professional athletes and when you go into those spaces, you're deep in strength training. You're just pushing perform on the field. Like those are your goals. So learning how to proper recover was everything, and managing the stress, pressures, and all that.
Yeah, versus being injected and go out on the field and perform because we've got millions of dollars on the line.
100%. Yeah. And so, but that's the prevention of like massive, like lots of soft tissue injuries is really the goal. So if you activate everything properly, everything is going to be intact and safe. So then that's right before, and when that ended, good 3-year run, which was awesome. But again, I was like itching to do my own thing. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we should open up a studio in Bellevue. And this was like right before COVID. We were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So that was in the works. Opening of the studio was in the works, and that was going strong. And Jake was still in his gym. So when we all collided, it was like, okay, well, you're not opening a studio anymore because COVID's here and lockdowns are here. So that killed all of that. And then that's when we'll just take it online. Who cares? We'll just go all the way online, because ain't nobody's going to train right now anyways, because they're freaking scared and in their homes and it's not coming out. So, and nobody knows what that was at that time, right? It was so new and very fearful. So, and taking it online has been awesome. And that's where we are.
Well, and that's when you and I met, because you guys, I think, were barely off that platform. You were in that platform, I think, because when the running joke between you and I, when I presented my athleisure just randomly, was also like, how do you plug this in? Let's do a podcast. We've got to connect, blah, 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 blah. 100%. And I don't think you guys had really, gotten off the ground with what you guys were figuring out.
Yeah.
And I love hearing how much you love this platform, because personally, I think you can touch so many more people's lives.
That's the whole point too. It's like the exposure, and there's no limits anymore. Like there's no location limits. It's literally like you can make it work for anybody, anywhere. And it's completely like, it's blown up. So
I can only imagine you must have so many more clients that you can affect now and have the freedom to be anywhere you want.
Mm-hmm. Which silver lining.
Well, yeah, because now you don't have 4 doors that you have to keep open. You don't have employees that you have to take care of. No disrespect to employees, but you have the freedom you can be in Hawaii on holiday and still be training your clients. You mean, again, the freedom, like the mad love for technology has got to be ultimately like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, again, we would never have connected if it weren't for technology.
Exactly. But like we talked about too, is like finding the like minds in this whole new weird world type of thing has been awesome, because it just along the way you do meet, like you and I did. And even when we travel to different places, it's just the effects. Like even when we moved to Idaho, our neighbors were like, you guys move next to us, because they're not in shape. And they're like, listen, we are not in shape. And we're like, it's not like it's like a requirement. But they were like,
can't be our neighbors if you're not in shape.
Yeah, I was like, it's so funny. I'm like, okay, whatever. But now they're like freaking going to the gym every day. They're like, see ya. It's just so funny. It cracks me up. But so it's just so the exposure is just literally like everywhere. So it's nice.
It's amazing. Well, what's super cool, and my perspective that I also had gotten before we had met, dealing with a mom who had aged and gone through the strokes, and being around a lot of people who were between the ages of, anywhere. I mean, I would imagine the average age was somewhere between the 80s and 90s. And I know that there must have been somebody who had hit 100, and there might have been younger people, because anybody, I think from 55 on up, God forbid, who needed to go through recovery and assisted living or just live there for whatever reason. I got exposed to, having been around my mom, and certainly the therapy she had to go through. And again, even though, I mean, I was never a professional athlete, so I'm not even going to call, but I was always really strong, and I always moved my body, but not like where every day I had to get out and run. No, but I did love ballet bar, and I did love Pilates, and I did love boxing, and I did love hiking. And I'm not going to lie, of course, I much prefer to feel better and strong. And ironically, after you and you, Jake, and I had spoken, it must have been somewhere end of February, beginning of March, that something happened to my right knee where I was like, oh shit, is something going on with my meniscus?
Okay.
Because again, I'm pretty aware of my body and how it feels. And I immediately made sure I got into the doctor, and I immediately made sure that they ordered an MRI, because I did not want to mess around, and I didn't want to miss work, but I didn't want to hurt myself. And I knew I was carrying this weight, and I just wanted to take one step at a time. So I immediately got in on the doctor on a Saturday morning. They were thankfully able to schedule me an MRI Monday morning. I mean, but I also like it or not, I'm very much a very aggressive advocate. So, I don't know, maybe that doesn't surprise you, but
so good.
But I was also lucky. I was lucky that the timing was such. And of course they said what I thought. I had a slight meniscus tear, as many people do, unacknowledged, right? But I didn't want it to get worse, and I didn't want to end up in surgery. And I wanted to heal it no different than your bulging disc. I wanted to heal it in a way that I could get back in the saddle, so to speak, in a way that I know how to. So I ended up asking for water therapy, physical therapy, because I'm a water baby, and I know, and I don't know, was this before? What's that?
It'll be like somewhat enjoyable.
Well, enjoyable, even though honestly, I really don't like being in public pools anymore. It kind of freaks me out. And during COVID, I was like, well, how's this going to work? And then I thought, Felice, don't even think about it. Just go take care of yourself, like restore yourself, wear a mask, wear as many layers of clothes as you need to feel
totally
protected.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I was in all my athleisure. I was like wearing a sports bra and biking shorts and these performance shirts with like little loops through and my mask. I'm sure initially my PT guy was like, all right. But what's really funny is he's seen me change because I've been with him this whole time. He's like, who you showed up being versus who you are now. It's like, I almost don't recognize you. I mean, again, I was the same person, but it's this evolution. And what literally happened, I don't even remember how many sessions in, that I'm at the side of the pool. And I just all of a sudden have this conversation with myself, like, hey, Felicia, if you want to get better, you need to get weight off your body, because no amount of movement is going to help you if you don't take the pressure off your joints.
100%. So true.
And I had been watching, besides conversations like what we had, I had been watching people, successfully losing weight anywhere from 20 to 60, over 100 pounds over the last year. And I was just like, man, when are you going to pull the trigger?
Yeah. I know. It's true. But it's funny, to your point, kudos to you, by the way, for doing all of the things to get yourself in a better place. Because even like for us, we know a lot of the times, which you have to have a scary ass medical emergency, crazy ass doctor appointment for it to finally click, like, oh shit, I gotta figure this out, like yesterday, and it's true. I mean, because people are not asleep, I want to say, but just they're, no, I'm fine, I'm good, until it's really not, because then you're forced into it, of course, which is what you want to prevent, obviously, in the long run. You don't want those types of reports coming back later on in life.
Totally.
But it's literally one of the major things. Like we'll get calls all the time, be like, oh my God, my doctor, I have to fix this. Like, this is it. Like, I have to. We're like, okay. But it's like 6 months to like, get here, which is, it's just a psychology thing, right? It's like rug gets swept out from under you. I really have to fix it now, or this will happen. And then it's a slew of like sequence of events, right? So good for you.
It's true. No, thank you. Well, no, it's true though. And it's ironic because it just so happened that all of my doctor appointments were kind of aligned with this period of time of losing this weight, not meaning to. That just happened schedule wise as it was the time of year to that they were happening.
Yeah.
To the point where literally like, I have a cardiologist because our father died at 47 years of age. And there comes a point where you just like, you want to be aligned with a cardiologist because your history, you want to prevent it versus exacerbate it.
Yes.
Or my endocrinologist who deals with all the thyroid stuff, or just my internist who refers all the things and keeps things in check head to toe. But also my allergists. And I speak on these things very openly and honestly, because what has happened is in every one of those categories, all of my numbers, all of my reflection of my blood work, everything has changed dramatically. I mean, when my allergist says your breathing tests have never been better, they're at a 98 percentile. And I haven't even been on medication like for most of the time of the pandemic, but mostly because of having been pre-med and having worked on cadavers. I said this to you. I should have been thin at 18 and kept the fat off, because seeing fat suffocate organs is nothing anybody would want to like say, hey, I'll sign up for that. I'll get fat. I'll be fat and just, or I don't even want to use the word fat because I kind of find it offensive word. To be perfectly honest, I just want to say, I would think twice about the eclair or the cannoli or whatever. And I never did. I happily will reach for it and I will happily put it in my mouth. Yeah. But I also know what it looks like medically on a body and inside a body.
100%. Yeah. Which is not many people can do that.
No, because how many people besides in the medical field have actually worked on cadavers and see what it all looks like? And I've even gone so far as to say, I'd say it was about 3 weeks, a month ago, I was at my chiropractor's and I was being asked about this weight I'm losing. And because it's noticeable, these people know me a long time. And I was using the cadaver conversation as a for instance, and I was saying, and I literally grabbed my tummy. And I said, man, if I can grab this, you can only imagine what's inside your body that you can't see. I said, and the reason why we as women, it was literally like 5 women around me. I said, the reason why we as women need to get rid of this, it's not because we're not beautiful just the way we are. And we're all different individuals, different shapes and sizes. We're all beautiful just the way we are. I want to make sure that message is clear. The reason why we want to get rid of this is because of our heart.
Yeah, 100%.
We need to make sure that our heart is not suffocated. Because if I can grab this on the outside, my heart and lungs on the inside have that much more impacted of just what I'm grabbing, but it's on the inside that you can't grab and see.
100%. And it's so crazy. I mean, we've been through, now coaching probably for 16 years now, right? It's like you can heal so much stuff, even when you feel like it's dire and like you got all these crazy like reports, right, coming in. Like food can heal if you do everything the natural way without doing crazy restrictive stuff. Just keep it really basic, very stress-free. You can heal so much stuff naturally. Whole from the earth, hands down, no medication, no prescription chasing, it's like so much stuff can happen. especially in terms, big time, especially as you age, like our hormones, forget about it. Like they're fleeting, right? It's like, they're going to change no matter what. That imbalance, I know we're so screwed. We're screwed. It's like, we're screwed. And then we're really screwed later on. It's like, it's super annoying, but keeping a well-balanced, really like fulfilling natural diet is that hormone balance. It helps so much in hormone balance for sure, and insulin spikes and resistance and all that.
Yeah, and I think that is a journey that people have to be willing to adjust to. No different than how your car needs to be maintained, and different, sometimes it's going to be your brake pads, other times it's going to be your fuel, your engine oil, other times it's going to be your transmission, but it always has to be acknowledged and adjusted for. And I think that what I observe about human beings, without it sounding judgmental, is people. And look at, when you're overweight, I think people are really quick to just make the assumption that you're just lazy, or you're just, you're not healthy, or you're just not any of those things. And look, and I'm sure that that's true for many, but there's plenty of thin people, as we know, that also are not healthy.
Exactly. 100%. Yes. Across the board. Yes.
So,
it's stigmas attached to it that you have to like conquer through, which is annoying. It's like, you don't constantly have to prove yourself per se, or try to feel like you have to prove yourself because of, one way or the other. Very annoying.
Yeah, it's, that's a whole nother conversation. But I know that going towards what you and Jake do, which is working with people who are basically in a middle-aged state of being, 40, 50s and going on up, maybe 50s on up, right? More or less.
Well, we hit 40s just because I feel like I've grown up with everybody too. Like, we've grown. So I always say 40 because I'm like, I'm right there. It's like, shit, things are going to change. So might as well roll with that. But he deals with a lot of, because he's 54, right? So a lot of men naturally gravitate to him because being that in shape at his age, with all the autoimmune shit he has going on top of it, right? And so, like, the way it's like, they're like, here, I'll do whatever you say, it's like, because it's the same thing with men. Like, it's a different management system as you age to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
And it's just, you have to switch that over because you're not in your 20s anymore. So you can't work out like it and you can't eat like it.
No, it's true. And I definitely, without bringing partners into the conversation, no, there's no question. I mean, my husband's always been an athlete. He's got a very physical job, but there's no question that, bodies change and things change, and what you can and cannot put in your body. And it's funny because I know when I made the decision to start losing weight this time, I thought, nah, I'm not even going to talk about this. I got to be of action. I can't be of talk. Totally. When I've lost 10 or 15 pounds and it starts to look noticeable, then I'll say, oh, hey, I've dropped 15 pounds, and just like walk away from the conversation. That's literally how I've handled it so far. No joke.
Isn't it easier because when you talk about it, right? Even obviously when you talk about it, then you're up for catching fire one way or another, right? But then you can just kind of own journey, your own perspective, and just like grind, right? And then you don't have all the ways to deal with when you're doing that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that you said that, because I did take on a different kind of a coach, relatable, but different. In the sense of just had other habits and what have you. And it was not something that I was looking to do. And though I do believe in coaches, I believe in multiple coaches. Frankly. I think you can't have enough coaches. Look at the football team. You got the defensive end, and you got the, the whatever end, the other end. the
the other,
ass and the breasts, the
the other,
arms and the leg.
yeah, 100%.
And I remember him being like, goes back to that athleisure business. You know, all of a sudden I realized I had no idea. I went to take a photograph, and for basically 2 years, I've been photographing my legs to show like pieces.
Yeah.
And if I showed myself in a full length, I was like sitting on the edge of my bed or holding the camera up high, and I was always, you know, first off, I didn't know how to do a selfie 2 years ago. I mean, it was like, let alone social media. So now I've decided to help launch this company, you know, 2 months into this pandemic. And now I'm making myself vulnerable by making this announcement that I've just helped decide to launch this company against like my film career, not against it, but in addition to it.
Yeah.
You know, what are people going to think? All the limited beliefs that came up, all the managing expectations that came up, you know, am I able to do this? Am I good enough? Do I look the part, even though it's inclusive, like,
yeah,
oh, the stories and
yeah.
voices.
Oh, yeah.
So I never rarely showed myself head to toe in the way that many of my partners might have.
Sure. Makes sense.
Or felt comfortable doing. And listen, I've got partners who, you know, feel comfortable or look like they'd feel comfortable and don't, and others who feel self-inhibited because of other partners that we have who are like, you know, like yourself, who we consider knocked out gorgeous, and like, how do you compete with that crap? And I don't mean crap as in not honoring you, but
yeah.
this is exactly what we're trying to show, is that we're an inclusive line.
Yes.
And we're wearing and sharing, right?
Always. Yeah.
So it's a very fine line of conversation and feeling at ease and finding the people who can feel like, hey, well, she can do it, or she looks good in this, or looks comfortable and can wear this, so can I, right?
100%.
But I realized that until I started losing this weight, I was like, holy shit. I was one of those people who was really consciously feeling that way.
Yeah.
Which is how I kind of kicked off that announcement that I had started dropping this weight. And when I saw photographs, and I was like, oh my God, my waistline's coming back. That was a big deal.
So good. Benchmark. Really good benchmark.
Good benchmark. There's been some other things that have come up that we will talk off camera about. That that there's realization that I would like to talk with you about like now what's happening with one's body as it's shifting and weight loss, and how you need to adjust to like snap it back, because there is that. I'm not 38 anymore.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's as things age, right? It's the older you get, the more importance of resistance training comes in. Way less emphasis on cardio. Cardio is great for conditioning and for your heart, whatever, but it is not your bulk of, you know what I mean? And so resistance training is going to, it's what's going to change, you know, that partners with the diet to get your fat loss down. You know, that is like, those are the pairs. I always say, like, abs are made in the kitchen. Abs are not made with like 50 bicep curls. So it's like the strength is there for your muscle definition, your build, right?
Right. Well, listen, I think to myself, truthfully, if I hadn't like done all the Pilates I've done over the years, or the ballet bar work, or even the hiking on mountains, I'm not sure where my tuchus would be these days. I mean, but losing weight, you come to realize, like, and I haven't been consistent with moving my body the way, like, you know, I have a reformer right outside my sliding glass door. Ask me the last time I got on my reformer when it's right there under my nose. I mean, that's embarrassing. I've told you this before, I've got every piece of equipment, this is to my point of why coaches are so important, why
100.
accountability, partnering, and aligning is
Yes,
so important.
have to.
And now why more than ever, we're going to, talk about this,
Yes,
you and I privately,
yes.
because it's important, but even publicly, it's important. Coaching is so important. I wrote a piece about it that I haven't published yet, but it really, really isn't, because I edit my stuff so much,
Sure.
but it really is important. And people don't realize in life, like people think, oh, I've gone through high school and I'm done with my education, or I've gone through college, I've done with,
Sure.
no, your education is just starting.
100%. Different, keep going, all of it. I know. What do they always say? They always say, like, oh, if I knew this when I was like 22, I'd be like set, because it's just, yeah, it always is continuing. It's funny you say that, though, because even when the pandemic hit, we literally, because they're like, we're not face to face anymore. And I'm like, I know. But she's like, well, fuck that. So they went and bought reformers for their house and literally, like, that's what we do. I'm like, you're going on your reformer, just walk outside your bedroom, get your cup of coffee, call it a day. Because it literally is, if I wasn't there, they would never do it.
It sucks. I mean, if I told you how many years I wanted a reformer, then I got a reformer, and I got a really like old school wood, heavy duty reformer, to the point where even the 6-month-old puppy started to chew on my headrest. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? And my husband was like, I'll restore it. Don't worry about it. But it's outside because there's really no room inside for it.
Yeah. Those are big guys.
It's a big mother of goodness, and it's not that none of that modern aluminum stuff happening.
I know.
Which is fine.
Yeah. You got the OG.
I do need to get on it because I know what my body does, but I also know what my body has done from losing this weight. As much as it shrunk,
yeah,
the skin and things need to snap back, and I just keep going, please God, waiting, snap back.
Yes, totally. All in process too. Things like you are in your first phase. I always say, right? Like, you made the decision, you're in your first phase, right? So I always say too, when you start something, you also don't want to overwhelm yourself, because that's when people are like, fuck it. No, too fucking hard. I'm not doing that. No. And then it goes all the way back again. So it's like, when you first start getting comfortable with your first phase, is super important. And then the other stuff, then you can add on. Food's intact. You know what your day-to-day looks like. If you throw something in, if you don't, if you kind of get off on one day, like your whole day isn't ruined, like you're strong enough to keep it moving. And that's when you kind of I like to add things on. Okay, well, let's think about okay, what is working out like? Oh, okay, what does your recovery look like? You know what I mean? You slowly build it up. I always like to work with, we like to work with 6 pillars, right? And it's super basic, but if you literally did them every day, it's game over. And it's like sleep, hydration, breath, nutrition, and exercise, and your mindset. That's it.
So great.
And it's literally, and it's all holistic in the sense of they all go together. You're not sleeping. Some shit's not going to be right. You're not going to hit your workouts. Your energy's going to be low. You're going to eat weirder stuff because you're just in a stressed state. So they're all so relative. If you're dehydrated, it can affect your hormones as we age. It's like so many things. So if you just stick to, and it's simple, right? It's like, those are just keeping it simple. No crazy weird measurement, crazy tools and calculating, none of that. Just day to day, concentrate on your.
Isn't it crazy what we don't know that we think we know that we don't know? Oh my God. Listen, I cannot wait for you to hear part 2 next week as I sit down and continue this conversation with Rachel Sigl, because again, there's just so much to absorb in the best way possible. And if I can pass on this opportunity to share enlightenment and and create a connection that really is mind, body, spirit in this conversation that helps one, if not many people, based upon hearing Rachel from Morph Method. I think that it will really give people the freedom that they're seeking, the feeling of joy in their body and their mind that they're seeking. I know it's possible because I'm doing it. I look forward to sharing next week's conversation as Rachel and I sit down and continue this conversation. And in the meantime, listen, subscribe, join, and share the Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast, where the spirit is young, the soul is wise, and the life stories are vast, and where we talk about everything from soup to nuts, or what I like to say, from cannolis to egg in the holes, and don't forget the s'mores. See you next week. Much love. Have a great week. Bye for now.
So there's a difference of motivation, right? There's intrinsic motivators. And then there's like what you said, like, oh, I just want to look good. I just want to do whatever, just get fit, rest, whatever. The intrinsic motivators of like, I want to be there for my family. I need to be my best self for work. I cannot fuck around anymore because it's going to tank me, and therefore the rest of everything is going to tank, right? Like, the intrinsic motivators that's what carries people through on a deep level. And that's literally like, that's why we try to figure out, like, no, everybody wants to look good. Let's not like discount that by any means, right? Like for your own, find what you feel like is good, fine. But that's why people yo-yo too. It's like, okay, well, your motivation isn't there to be really like life fulfilling and just keeping it there for longevity. Because once you get your weight loss goal, like to your point, what's next? It's like, that's why you always have to evolve it. You always have to keep moving. Like, what does that next phase look like for you?
Welcome to episode 53 of the Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast with my guest, Rachel Sigl, health and wellness coach from Morph Method. As we sit down, part two, and continue our conversation of, as Rachel puts it, what you don't know, that you don't know, that you don't know. And boy, did I, in this recording, what's so crazy to me is literally, it was recorded 4 or 5 weeks ago. And the things I know today versus what I knew then in this conversation that I was waking up to is just unbelievable, and why you have to sit down and listen to this incredible conversation. It is so full, so rich, so enlightening, so inspiring. I cannot wait for you to hear it. So join me and Rachel as we sit down and talk about life as a sculpture. It's nude or it's not. Take care. Sit around. Join me. Here we go. I know that going towards what you and Jake do, which is working with people who are basically in a middle-aged state of being, 40, 50s and going on up, maybe 50s on up, right? More or less.
Well, we hit 40s just because I feel like I've grown up with everybody too. Like, we've grown. So I always say 40 because I'm like, I'm right there. It's like, shit, things are going to change. So might as well like, roll with that. But he deals with a lot of, because he's 54, right? So a lot of men naturally gravitate to him because being that in shape at his age with all the autoimmune shit he has going on top of it, right? And so like the way it's like, they're like, here, I'll do whatever you say, it's like, because it's the same thing with men. Like it's a different management system as you age to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
And it's just, you have to switch that over because you're not in your 20s anymore. So you can't work out like it and you can't eat like it.
No, it's true. And I definitely, without bringing partners into the conversation, no, there's no question. I mean, my husband's always been an athlete. He's got a very physical job, but there's no question that, bodies change and things change and what you can and cannot put in your body. And it's funny because I know when I made the decision to start losing weight this time, I thought, nah, I'm not even going to talk about this. I got to be of action. I can't be of talk. Totally. When I've lost 10 or 15 pounds and it starts to look noticeable, then I'll say, oh, hey, I've dropped 15 pounds and just like walk away from the conversation. That's literally how I've handled it so far. No joke.
Isn't it easier? Because when you talk about it, right? Even obviously when you talk about it, then you're up for catching fire one way or another, right? But then you can just kind of own journey, your own perspective, and just like grind, right? And then you don't have all the ways to deal with when you're doing that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that you said that because I did take on a different kind of a coach, relatable, but different. In the sense of just other habits and what have you. And it was not something that I was looking to do. And though I do believe in coaches, I believe in multiple coaches, frankly. I think you can't have enough coaches. Look at the football team. You got the defensive end and you got the, the whatever end, the other end, the ass and the breasts, the arms and the leg.
Yeah. 100%.
And I remember him being like, back to that athleisure business, all of a sudden I realized I had no idea. I went to take a photograph. And for basically 2 years, I've been photographing my legs to show like pieces.
Yeah.
And if I showed myself in a full length, I was like sitting on the edge of my bed or holding the camera up high and I was always, first off, I didn't know how to do a selfie 2 years ago. I mean, it was like, let alone social media. So now I've decided to help launch this company, 2 months into this pandemic. And now I'm making myself vulnerable by making this announcement that I've just helped decide to launch this company against like my film career, not against it, but in addition to it. What are people going to think? All the limited beliefs that came up, all the managing expectations that came up, am I able to do this? Am I good enough? Do I look the part, even though it's inclusive, like, the stories and voices. So I never rarely showed myself head to toe in the way that many of my partners might have.
Sure. Makes sense.
Or felt comfortable doing. And listen, I've got partners who, feel comfortable or look like they'd feel comfortable and don't, and others who feel self-inhibited because of other partners that we have who are like, like yourself, who we consider knocked out gorgeous, and like, how do you compete with that crap? And I don't mean crap as in not honoring you, but this is exactly what we're trying to show, is that we're an inclusive line.
Yes.
And we're wearing and sharing, right?
Always. Yes.
So it's a very fine line of conversation and feeling at ease and finding the people who can feel like, hey, well, she can do it, or she looks good in this, or looks comfortable and can wear this, so can I, right?
100%.
But I realized that until I started losing this weight, I was like, holy shit. I was one of those people who was really consciously feeling that way.
Yeah.
Which is how I kind of kicked off that announcement that I had started dropping this weight. And when I saw photographs and I was like, oh my God, my waistline's coming back. That was a big deal.
So good. Benchmark. Really good benchmark.
Good benchmark. There's been some other things that have come up that we will talk off camera about that that there's realization that I would like to talk with you about like now what's happening with one's body as it's shifting and weight loss and how you need to adjust to like snap it back, because there is that. I'm not 38 anymore.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's as things age, right? It's the older you get, the more importance of resistance training comes in. Way less emphasis on cardio. Cardio is great for conditioning and for your heart, whatever, but it is not your bulk of, you know what I mean? And so resistance training is going to, it's what's going to change, you know, that partners with the diet to get your fat loss down. You know, that is like, those are the pairs. I always say like abs are made in the kitchen. Abs are not made with like 50 bicep curls. So it's like the strength is there for your muscle definition, your build, right?
Right. Well, listen, I think to myself, truthfully, if I hadn't like done all the Pilates I've done over the years, or the ballet bar work, or even the hiking on mountains, I'm not sure where my tuchus would be these days. I mean, but losing weight, you come to realize like, and I haven't been consistent with moving my body the way, like, you know, I have a reformer right outside my sliding glass door. Ask me the last time I got on my reformer when it's right there under my nose. I mean, that's embarrassing. I've told you this before, I've got every piece of equipment, this is to my point of why coaches are so important, why accountability, partnering, and aligning is so important. And now why more than ever, we're going to, you know, talk about this, you and I privately, because it's important, but even publicly, it's important. Coaching is so important. I wrote a piece about it that I haven't published yet, but it really, really isn't, because I edit my stuff so much, but it really is important. And people don't realize in life, like people think, oh, I've gone through high school and I'm done with my education, or I've gone through college, no, your education is just starting.
100%. Different, keep going, all of it. I know. What do they always say? They always say like, oh, if I knew this when I was like 22, I'd be like set, you know, because it's just, it always is continuing. It's funny you say that though, because even when the pandemic hit, we literally, because they're like, we're not face to face anymore. And I'm like, I know, but she's like, well, fuck that. So they went and bought reformers for their house and literally like, that's what we do. I'm like, you're going on your reformer, just walk outside your bedroom, get your cup of coffee, call it a day. Because it literally is, if I wasn't there, they would never do it.
It sucks. I mean, if I told you how many years I wanted a reformer, then I got a reformer, and I got a really like old school wood heavy duty reformer, to the point where even the 6-month-old puppy started to chew on my headrest. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? And my husband was like, I'll restore it. Don't worry about it. But it's outside because there's really no room inside for it.
Yeah. Those are big guys.
It's a big mother of goodness. And it's not that, none of that modern aluminum stuff happening.
I know.
Which is fine.
Yeah. You got the OG.
I do need to get on it, because I know what my body does, but I also know what my body has done from losing this weight, as much as it shrunk.
Yeah.
The skin and things need to snap back. And I just keep going, please God, waiting, snap back.
Yes, totally. All in process too. Think like you are in your first phase. I always say, right? Like you made the decision, you're in your first phase, right? So I always say too, when you start something, you also don't want to overwhelm yourself, because that's when people are like, fuck it. No, too fucking hard. I'm not doing that. No. And then it goes all the way back again. So it's like when you first start getting comfortable with your first phase, you know, is super important. And then the other stuff, then you can add on. food's intact, you know what your day-to-day looks like. If you throw something in, if you don't, if you kind of get off on one day, like your whole day isn't ruined, like you're strong enough to keep it moving. And that's when you kind of like, I like to add things on. Okay, well, let's think about like, okay, what is working out like, oh, okay, what is your recovery look like? You know what I mean? You slowly build it up. I always like to work with, we like to work with 6 pillars, right? And it's super basic, but if you literally did them every day, it's game over. And it's like sleep, hydration, breath, nutrition, and exercise, and your mindset. That's it.
So great.
And it's literally, and it's all holistic in the sense of like, they all go together. You're not sleeping. Yeah. Some shit's not going to be right. You're not going to hit your workouts. Your energy's going to be low. You're going to eat weirder stuff because you're just in a stressed state. So they're all so relative. If you're dehydrated, it can affect your hormones as we age. It's like so many things. So if you just stick to, and it's simple, right? It's like, those are just keeping it simple. No crazy weird measurement, crazy tools and calculating, none of that. Just day to day, concentrate on yourself.
So true. Well, and so to the point of the kind of clients that you're drawing in and the importance of all these things that you just mentioned, the 6 colors, so to speak, is, and going back to what you originally said, what you don't know until you know, or you're forced to know, is so relative and so relevant. And look at, even with somebody like myself who, was firsthand around it, there I was, again, hitting some, not the highest I'd ever been, but I was more at my computer. I was sitting more, even during the pandemic. I mean, here, I had just had this other interview with this woman I've done business with for a decade, with the woman who created the spray tan solution that I travel the world with. And I was saying, how this had happened because she's seen me through all this. And I was saying, here I thought I was going to get in my best shape ever, knowing that we had this time down and I didn't have to be on set for 80 hours a week. And that was the farthest thing from the truth of what happened.
The opposite, right?
Oh yeah, I remember hearing people losing weight and getting in great shape. And I was just like going, oh my God. So here I have showed myself that even with having the time, that this is not happening, not okay. And it was really heavy in my head, like all the conversations that took course. And if I'm having these conversations, I can only imagine all the other bubbles that are going off in everybody else's heads.
1000%. But you are not alone, because even though like some people were like, oh, I'm going to go bop around, like you're not going to a gym, you're doing it at home. You know what I mean? So, but that mindset, the stress of the pandemic, the underlying just constant, like weird, what the hell's going on type of, trying to figure out how to live with your family, working from home, kids are home. That shit is so stressful. And I think, people went the other way a lot of times just because they're just trying to cope at that point. They don't have like the tools to cope with that type and still take care of themselves the way they should, especially with COVID. If you're getting sick in COVID, your family has COVID, you don't want to go outside, like it's debilitating. Right. And so I feel like it tanked a lot of, not hope per se, but it tanked motivation for sure. Like, no, I'm at home. This is where I'm going to be. Screw it. We'll deal with the rest, and maybe, and then it comes 20 pounds later. They call it they say like the freshman 15. It was like the pandemic 20. And they're like, I don't know what happened. I've just been at home. Something happened and I got to fix it.
Those ding dongs just kept showing up. Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah, no. Yeah. No, I go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So it's just like, I think it's so relative to what you're going through. So many went through it.
Well, and what I realized was, so, knock wood, we didn't get COVID, and knock wood, we did have all these protocols to deal with. Here we are in LA, here we are in Hollywood, here we are with this film and entertainment industry that still is testing us, still is requiring us all the things. And look, I get everybody's got a different opinion, and everybody is like, screw the mask and this and that and whatever. Look, even if we hadn't had a pandemic, I'm going to be really transparent. I'm still a big believer in a mask and gloves when it comes to medicine. And there's a reason why. And I saw an advertisement done about Children's Hospital here in LA, and it wasn't trying to shove it down anybody's throat, but they did say, pre the pandemic, we always wore a mask and gloves to protect our children who are going through all these medical issues. So they stay safe. That's what we do in medicine. Done. That was the campaign. And I went, yeah, that's what you do in medicine. Why don't the rest of us get that? But irrelevant to comfort and wanting to, look, I don't want to live in a mask 18 hours a day either, but I also don't want to get sick with autoimmune and asthma and all the things. And I remember thinking also about carrying the extra weight. And how that also would not help if you got sick. But even, right? And granted, I know plenty of people who were not overweight or who got sick during all this time. And it didn't really matter one way or another how, and look there were many business meetings I did not attend, from Miami to Mexico to Utah to San Diego, for the very reasons that I had to make a decision not to go, for fear that, and I hate to use the word fear, but because I had to put my family first, my ability to make a living first.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right. My ability to make sure I kept my medical insurance first. And I understand that when you're an independent contractor, which you and I both are, but you're a different kind of independent contractor than I am. You don't have those guidelines. No. You could come and go. You could isolate while being connected. I was isolating while being connecting, but there came a point where I had to show up on a film set to get 100%.
Yes, exactly.
My primary career.
For sure. Yeah, 1000%. No, I think, making decisions, whatever is best for your household, is completely more than valid. I mean, Jake and I had COVID and actually he handled it pretty well. They say man sick.
Yeah.
But literally he got it 2 days before me and I was like, oh, I'm good. You got it. I didn't. I'm straight. I'm good. And, Reese, my stepson, was running around like, what's wrong with you guys? I'm good. And then I got hit 3 days later and I was like, oh shit. But we were it was only lasted a week, but we were definitely down for the count. Yeah. Reese never got it. Reese was just eating popcorn, walking around us like nothing, watching movies. And he's just like, let me know if you need anything. We're
amazing. Amazing.
I know. So we both got it and it sucked, but it was just like anything else. And we came out of it and it was fine. But I don't necessarily, no matter what, we're super healthy. So it's not like that shit was coming no matter what, I feel like, no matter what we did. And no matter how much vitamins we took, I don't think, probably because, we rested, we were down. We were sleeping, making sure it was good, keeping the vitamins going, all the fluids, whatever. But who knows if it would have shaved off, but at our healthiest, still got it. It's it is what it is,
Well, no, that's the thing. It's you can't predict who can. I've worked with an actress whose, husband died from this stuff, and it was a very well-known situation, really early on. And, and this guy was a Broadway star and totally healthy and, died at a young age. I know people who got hit really hard, whether they got vaccinated or didn't, pre-vaccinations or not. We can't work in the field without proving that we're vaccinated and boosted. Right. And I get that it's against a lot of people's belief. Look, it's kind of like we never discussed politics until a few years ago who voted for whom. So, it's kind of funny how we've evolved as a society and what is on the table versus what we don't put on the table, and what's private versus what's not.
For sure.
And And again, in order to, I also saw people lose their positions for not being vaccinated and boosted. And those were just the game changers for the time. And, you know, and I know that there's been this theory about, well, everybody's going to get it, you know, and my personal attitude is, yeah, but I'm not signing up for that. And I get that you might think that, but I really want to avoid it at all costs, which is no different than anybody else, of course. I get that.
Totally.
And it's interesting because I finally did attend a corporate gathering this last weekend down in San Diego.
Nice.
And I was one of only 2 women masked in the room, which is great and fine. And that is no judgment towards all the other women. I was so grateful to finally meet them. These were the women that helped get me through this whole, unbeknownst to anybody. This is one of the things I'm most grateful for, that I aligned with this company to help launch it, because it is the spirit of these women. It is that positive, like-minded tribe of women like yourself, who I was like, oh my God, where did you come from? You know, because I'm not coming from a tribe like this. That's healthy and raising people up and not ego driven, and you know, not to say that they don't have ego and what have you. No, but it's a different kind of raise you up kind of spirit, and not knock you down kind of spirit. And and as much as I wanted to stick around and mastermind and go to parties and have the hotel room and all that stuff, my gut said, you know, don't push the envelope. You got to come back and test for work. You don't, you know, as much as you want to party and kiss and hug some more and all that, maybe you should go. I've gotten my fill. I've shown up. I've done my thing. You can mastermind in other ways. Go home if you can cancel. And that's what I did. Literally, the hotel was amazing, allowed me to cancel. Came home, tested. Thankfully, I've already been working, tested it, because I wanted to make sure that I could work with the actresses and the clients that have hired me and are depending on me.
100%. Yeah, totally. I mean, we were, as soon as COVID hit, like we were just in no gym. Like we made our home gym. Like we're just like, this is it, figure it out. So luckily worked out. So I totally get it. But pushing, like getting your immunity naturally the strongest it could possibly be throughout that time. And even now, it's like, why, when we talk to people and clients or potential clients, it's like, why wouldn't you, you know, get your immunity as strong as it possibly can be with all aspects? And with that comes, like, you know, different aspects of your life change, whether it's, you know, alcohol and partying and, you know, things like that, especially as you get older, like those affect you much differently. And then we'll take out your immunity. You know, we're all for like, we're not the ones being like, you can't drink ever again for the rest of your life. Like not that shit. But if you're coming out of, you know, you switch your mindset, that'll come along with it, you know, in moderation. But
well, it's funny you say that, because one of the people who was, you know, asked me about this losing weight and stuff, and he was saying, well, you know, I've lost weight before. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know. I've known you since 94. We've both seen each other gain and lose weight plenty of times. And you know, he's like, well, what happens when I, you know, lose all my weight? And then what? And I was like, well, then hopefully the whole point of this is not about necessarily even the food that you're eating. It's the habits and the mindset that you choose to attach to, that you, and the accountability and the willingness to like be coached versus not be coached, and the willingness to have a different process than you've ever had before. Even though you're a doctor and you help a lot of other people, up till now you've abandoned your own ship, and now you have to be willing to no longer abandon your ship. And in this particular case, and they shall remain nameless, but this particular person deals with gout. And you know, gout is a chemical reaction to what you're putting in your body. That 1,000%. And you can't eat a big steak or drink a bottle or two of wine and think that you're going to have a positive response.
No. And, it's like I said, the life-threatening emergency calls for something like that to completely change. Because it's like, what else is going to stop them?
Having your leg amputated? I don't know.
Just like or even the thought of it, like, doc, like, oh my God, my toes might fall off. Okay, well, maybe I'll stop then if my toe falls off, especially because that is such a heavy, like, autoimmune uric acid levels, like,
yeah.
That'll get you big time. But even like, to your point, when you go through yo-yos too, like, that's super heavy on your body. Like, it's taxing, right? It's like, processes, it's trying to figure out life, it's trying to help you, as much as you can. So I always say, like, when you're suppressing it, with alcohols or its natural abilities, right? Like, gout is a medical condition, right? It's you really have to manage it and cut out all those things if you want it to improve. That's just like is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, flare-ups and weird inflammations and things like that. So those are your causes, right? But a lot of people do that. They'll be like, oh yeah, I ate that. I know I shouldn't have eaten that, but I ate it. And now I'm paying for it for 2 days. So it's like, eventually it's got to take its toll and be like, oh shit, okay, I really can't have that anymore. You know what I mean? But it has to get to a place, I feel like, of, oh shit, okay, I really have to stop it now, which is unfortunate because your body, like, it's just trying to tell you when things like that happen, it means there's something wrong. Right. Yeah. So it's creating that mind body connection, and like, you're just hyper aware, just awesome. But a lot of people just aren't aware, and they're just like, well, that's.
Yeah. But and with that said, it doesn't mean like I haven't pushed the envelope and tested it, because it's not like I haven't had other things in my system in the last 5 months. No, I have. And I've watched I watched the inflammation go up, and how I have to catch myself and say, all right, you're not, because somebody asked me, well, do you always have to, for instance, in their brain, if I'm now no longer taking pills, oh, so what are you, like, on a keto or whatever? Yeah. And I'm like, look, I am literally trying to eat every 2 to 3 hours.
Perfect.
I am literally trying to have a proper balance of fat and of protein and a probiotic mentality that my body can process. Mm-hmm. And listen, I honestly got to the point where I didn't even know that I could lose weight again. And it wasn't that I didn't think I could. It was because, even though I've lost weight with thyroid, my body, as I told you, it's gone up and down 40 pounds. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm back to where the lowest was. Now the goal is to, see myself what it's going to be like 20 pounds less from now.
Sure. Visionary.
And I have not been that weight. I've not been that weight since I was 13 years old and being bat mitzvahed.
Oh my God, I love you. That's awesome. Well, think about this too. So there's like there's a difference of motivation, right? There's intrinsic motivators. And then there's like what you said, like, oh, I just want to look good. I just want to do whatever, just get fit, rest, whatever. The intrinsic motivators of like, I want to be there for my family. I need to be my best self for work. I cannot fuck around anymore because it's going to tank me, and therefore the rest of everything is going to tank, right? Like, the intrinsic motivators that's what carries people through on a deep level. And that's literally like, that's why we try to figure out, like, no, everybody wants to look good. Let's not like discount that by any means, right? Like, for your own, find what you feel like is good, fine. But that's why people yo-yo too. It's like, okay, well, your motivation isn't there to be really like life fulfilling and just keeping it there for longevity. Because once you get your weight loss goal, like to your point, what's next? It's like, that's why you always have to evolve it. You always have to keep moving. Like, what does that next phase look like for you? What am I doing? Am I working out more? Am I switching it up? Or, you know what I mean? That's all an adjustment for sure.
Yeah. I think that's why they call it the why.
That's right.
What's your why?
100%.
And people can roll their eyeballs, including myself. But you come to realize the power of what that is.
Yeah.
And keeping your eye on that focus, because it's easy to get your eye off that focus if
Mm-hmm.
you're not focused, no pun intended.
100%.
And it is, I mean, even like I said, in the 5 months, you know, I think it's kind of like a life thing when you ask yourself, what have you done that you've done well, that you've seen through completely versus what you do half-assed.
100%. Yeah, totally. Yeah, makes all the difference. And that's like, people also have to be ready for that. If you're not ready, it'll never happen, and you can't force it or like fake it. It's not right now, maybe eventually, but they really have to come to terms with that, because that whole so screwed up along the way, and then you'll be so like, you'll get a bad taste in your mouth from it. You'll be like, I'm never doing that shit again, you know? And that's when people like just, they resent that whole process of losing weight or getting healthy. And like, it's so hard and daunting, you know, because they go through other programs that also failed them completely, you know, and they set themselves up for failure. Those programs do.
Yeah. And I've definitely seen that as well. And look at, the truth is I am a part of a program, but I'm a part of a program that, you know, I'm good with right now, that I've also incorporated eating food, even when they're like, you do this, that, and the other. I'm like, I want to make sure that my body, being Felicia, I want to make sure that my body, hey, if I need to eat more food, I'm going to eat more food because I'm up longer, because maybe that's the first thing I need when I wake up is more food to fuel my body. I'm choosing to listen to my body, and I'm choosing to, within that realm, curb it to the way that suits me. So if I've lost 36 and up till now, at the same time, I know that, yeah, sure, maybe it would have been 40 or 45 by now. I'm not in competition with anybody else.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And my body needs to adjust. My skin needs to adjust. I need to get back into, you know, filming, motivating and moving my body in a way that's going to help adjust it. And then when you're doing that, then I'm adjusting what I'm fueling it with to make sure I'm getting enough so I'm not depleting it, versus I'm helping the muscle build. There's just, let alone the hormones and all that. So I think that, yes, there are things that people can, you know, successfully do, but it is how you can, you know, sculpt yourself into, no pun intended, this life journey.
Oh, 100%. Well, think about it. You just said it. So just the act of thinking restrictively, it's over. So you're binging, you're doing weird stuff, you're like hiding things. It's just like, so you basically created that for yourself. You said, this is what I'm going to do because I know what happens if I don't. And making it to yourself, because you have to make it to yourself. Because otherwise, if you give somebody else, like Tom's program is your program, that's never going to work ever. Everybody is so different. It's just how they absorb foods, process foods, metabolize foods. Everybody is crazy different. So that's why templates fail so much, and just being like, here's your check mark, or here's your like list and shit like that. Half the time it'll maybe get you to a certain point, but it's not teaching you your life, how to like literally bring it to your life.
I agree. And I also know that, like, if you sat down to 10 Clamato olives versus I sit down to 10, you're going to process differently than I am. 100%. Versus if you sit down to a bowl of blue corn chips with salsa, it's going to process differently in you than it processes differently in me. Totally. And even if that's, you know, and I've done those tests, and especially as I've gotten cleaner, I'm like, all right, so how does this process in my body? Good job. This is a Mediterranean thing that normally aligns with me because olive oil works well on me. Well, let's try, you know, a handful of olives and see. Oh, that didn't work so well. Okay, great. So weeks go by. And, I never said to my husband, you got to like get rid of all the stuff in the house, because I don't think that that's fair for him, because this isn't his journey. If he chooses to, align with me and cook out, which he's done. I mean, he's been extremely supportive, but I don't like hold a gun to the man's head and go, you can't have Mexican food, or, hey, by the way, I'm going to have Mexican food with you, but it's going to be a la carte, and it's going to be cut up chicken and a little bit of the guacamole, and I'm not going to have the shell. And by the way, I have had the shell, not necessarily with Mexican food. Maybe it's because I want to have a piece of cheese with it. And I go, I'm going to try this and see how I feel.
Totally. Perfect.
Because I think if even within a program, if you don't test yourself and see how your body feels and what happens on a scale, inflammation wise, or just how you process and how it feels, then you never trust yourself.
Of course not. And the cleaner you get your body, the more reactive it's going to be to the shit you're not supposed to have, which is literally, it's the barometer. Like, you can't fight that.
No. Like, gas isn't normal.
Exactly.
Gas is not normal. That is your body saying, I'm not digesting this well. From the moment it hits here, the mouth, 100%. To the moment it releases completely through your system. 100%. And and that's what I love about where mentally and physically I am now, and what I think people should, when they're ready, strive for, because it's not just, it's not just losing weight, like you said, and it's not just mindset. It is like, how do you freaking feel? Like, do you feel like your joints are pain-free? Do you feel like you can bend over? So another ironic thing was in going to this meeting on Saturday, another one of the women I'm aligned with happened to have been for years a San Diego cheerleader for the Chargers.
Nice.
Several of them. So these girls are, beautiful and physical and all that. And she also does a Zoom thing, and she's like, oh, come on my class. I'm thinking, I'm not going to do that. But I did. Ironically, I did it yesterday, and it was her birthday, and it was really sweet that it all aligned. And I thought, oh my God, I have not done a floor mat thing for a very long time. I happened to grab I didn't even know what I was supposed to grab, by the way. I grabbed a bunch of mats, so I knew that I had enough cushion, because I'm also thinking about my knee and all the things. And I brought in the lightest hand weights, even though I have glove weights and heavier weights. And I brought in my O-ring with my Pilates ring. And I brought in I didn't know what we were going to do, but I thought, well, just have these things nearby.
Yep.
The proudest thing was that I got through the whole hour.
So good.
The proudest thing was, if I needed to adjust, I know as an athlete, quote unquote, I use that term loosely, that I would just do what I could do. But the fact that I could just endurance wise get through it.
Yeah, that's really
and good. Just kind of follow along. And, I said to her this morning, like, I can only feel a little soreness in my tush. The truth is the day proceeded, there was more down the thigh, a little in the arms. But I was just like, what I felt was so good, and it just makes me want to do more. And there's reasons why, because I want to be strong. I want to, seeing the aging of people. And it happens, like, really younger than people want to actually acknowledge.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, and it's muscle loss goes much faster as you age too, right? So the work you're doing, it's like, as soon as you stop or get distracted or off your path, it's like, it just goes way faster. So it's like, keeping it up is not necessarily difficult, but you really have to be, like you said at the very beginning of this, consistency. Hello. Like, you stay consistent, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Your conditioning will be up. Your strength will be there. You will always keep your level, and you'll never feel like you go backwards, and you still can like get the dopamine release, get your energy up, so many things. Yeah.
I think that was the thing that felt the best, was the vibration that I felt afterwards. I mean, I wanted to eat and give myself protein, and that was fine.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt like this great vibration for a while that I was like, oh yeah, I miss having that in my body. That's good.
Yeah. Well, it's such a nice, I mean, like exercise is one of the biggest stress relievers ever, right? Naturally, right?
Yeah.
And that just release, like, it's like when Jake, if we don't work out, which we take like 2 to 3 days off a week, fine. But when we don't, it's like we're pent up. If it's like, okay, we really got to go do something before, like, it's just that release that your body gets so used to. And it's just that craving for it for sure.
I think it's interesting how certain bodies are wired though for that to just be the thing that you need to do. And some of us aren't wired that way. I don't necessarily think I have that wiring.
I bet you, as you continue on your own path, that when you do start working out more, because your metabolism is going to keep going and it's going to get faster, you'll start to feel elements of that. I bet you.
Well, I can honestly say what's so interesting in just that one workout, the difference in the way my tummy looked this morning was like, holy shit, it looks like I've been really working out for a while. How did that happen so quickly? And I mean, it sounds silly and vain. It's not. It was just a noticeable difference of just how things, I was like, in one pass, I mean, come on, because it's not like I haven't done a lot of different heavy duty things over the years.
Oh, totally.
But I also know, and geared towards what you and Jake do, I would imagine, is it's not about the heavy impact and the jarring of your body. It's more about the flow and the stability and the strength to be able to do things gracefully. So as we talked about back in November, December, so you can roll out of bed and stand up. So you can put and tie on your shoes and put on your pants and not fall over or trip up the steps, and that you can go to the bathroom and not, I mean, people are like, come on, you cannot seriously be talking about this. But people don't realize.
Yeah, it's super real. Like age catches up with you so quick. Like so quick. And the militant, like, kill yourself 2-hour intense workouts is such an old school way of thinking, right? It is literally like the older way of doing it. And so when they're like, it's such a mind, like they really have to wrap their mind around it. Okay, you can spend maybe an hour in the gym. You don't got to sit there and like go nuts. And pushing heavy weights all the time is not necessarily really good for you. Like that's not your goal either. It's like you're just here to maintain. Even if you were wanted to be in better shape or you want to wear a marathon, like you still don't have to kill yourself because you're just exacerbating your nervous system at that point, which exercise is already stress on your body, right? So when you overdo, now you're just putting it into like, now you're in a stress state and now nobody's going nowhere and it's inflamed and it's mad and your cortisol's up. So it's like, balance.
So let's say you get, just for the audience sake, you get, people who come to you, they've got all different things that they're trying to achieve. Some it's to lose weight, some it's to get stronger, some it's to build new habits, so what is your kind of like approach to say you have a woman like me, okay? You met a woman like me. She was closer to 200 pounds than that. She's not the tallest woman on the planet. Sure. She's lost her waistline. She's capable of moving her body, but not, that she's had different health issues, just more autoimmune, doesn't have a thyroid, blah, blah, blah. What would you say to a woman like that?
So when you're starting off too, right? When not necessarily you're not sedentary, but you definitely want to do things to set you up. And we always do this in layers. Like first, you conquer the food, because food is always the hardest thing. Like you said, there's emotional attachments to food. That shit really doesn't happen with workouts per se. The hardest part is food, like hands down. So to prevent overwhelm and further, like you do that first, and once you kind of give that a few we probably give it like a good like 1 to 3 months, to make it sink in. 90 days is a really good rounded number. Then we talk about activity, and that's like, okay, you start walking, start just getting your body moving. Once you feel good about that, like you can make it around the block, you can hit a mile. This is not rigorous. It's maybe like 30 minutes a day. Nothing nuts, but it's also walking is it's a good stress reliever as well. Like it's
so
a good
great
mindset break, the best low impact workout, fat burner, go for it. And then from there, see how you feel. Give it a few weeks, be like, okay, how do you feel? Okay, let's start to incorporate strength training at a low level. So preferring home workouts or gym workouts, just on the preference. And then you kind of build the programming from there, but you do it slowly. Because even if you start off strong, that it's going to tank really fast, and that's not going to get visited again. So it's like, especially when you're hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when injury can also occur, I think, too, if you go in too hard.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yes. And nobody wants to deal with that.
No. Well, and then it just slows down everything else. I mean, and then it's, because I know that I put on weight from injuries, where I couldn't move my body, and then I couldn't even walk the dogs. So I've definitely seen all of it from every angle, more than one would ever think, that would be there, like, and then this happened, and then, you're not signing up for things to happen. It just happens.
I know. Well, especially to your point, like the knee thing, right? That thing came out. Like, how did that even happen? Like, why did that even happen? Right. Exactly. So it's like also thinking joint safety is so major, right? Like the groups you want strong, legs, glutes, calves, those are all knee and hip protection, and back protection, especially as you age, are more susceptible, right?
Yeah.
So keeping those guys strong, upper body, so you have balance, so you can hold yourself up, none of the rounding happens, so you don't compensate, right?
Yeah.
Hold a body, you're fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Well, I think that is such a great approach for people, because you are absolutely right. The food, food is at least 80% of it.
100%. Yep. Always. Always, no matter what.
Yeah, it absolutely is, because then it takes away inflammation. It takes away, it takes incorporating the habit building.
Yep.
It takes creating your pattern. Like they say, it takes at least 40 days to create a pattern, a healthy pattern, or a new pattern. Yeah. I think that's a great healthy approach. And I think that is so sustainable for people, and so
and it leaves
really
room
supportive.
Customize, because you got to custom it to, right? So that's why you can't do this like one size fits all ever, because it just doesn't make sense at all. Even if like a husband and wife team came aboard and they're like, okay, obviously Tate's gonna him, I'm gonna train her, but it's literally like your diets are different, your portions are different, you are not of the same, you are different goals. Men's bodies are so much more different than ours hormonally, especially as they age. Those guys can like freaking kill off sugar, right? And drop like 5 pounds in a day. It's like
insane.
I know. So yeah, it's just it. But that way, that's what we can hit and work with so many different people, just because that approach is like, you can't go wrong with that ever. And when you keep it super stress-free on an already like crazy busy lives that we all have, it makes it that much better. And of course it always, I don't know if you experienced this, like you said, your husband kind of tagged along, but like it bleeds into your family. It's going to bleed into your house. If the woman of the house is cooking, it's over. And she's cooking for that. And, the kids are going to rummage for themselves, or they're going to kind of come on board with the gluten-free diet, whatever there is that they're working on. And of course, I feel like the man always kind of tags along, because they don't want to, interrupt the process when they're trying to like have their house as game tight as possible. They're like, I'm not messing with that shit.
Well, and so, you've had the opportunity to share the kind of approach that you have. And when you talked about in your history of creating your journey as an expert and practitioner, many times you wanted to open your own studio. Do you feel now with this technology that for all intents and purposes, you have opened your studio, it's a mobile access that, so you're fulfilling that need and goal that you've always wanted to achieve?
100%. I feel like when the whole thing crashed, it was a definite sign and a higher power to like, okay, that wasn't your pathway, even though that's what you wanted all these years and you thought that was the pinnacle. Like, this is so much more in comparison, you know, just from hindsight perspective is like, we can do anything now. And we're our own company. So it's like, ain't nobody telling us anything.
Yeah.
So that creates a lot of like visionary freedom as well. Cause it's like, okay, well, we're going to where we can evolve this as much as possible. So it'll just get tighter and tighter.
Well, and I would imagine from our conversation that we did have late 2021 to now, where, you know, we're now about 8 months later, give or take.
Yeah.
That a lot of evolution has happened for you guys and what you've decided to do versus no, we don't need to do that. This is how it is.
100%.
And I bet it's much more streamlined and you don't worry about like the YouTube catalog that you have to have in store, all the things, because you can just keep it fresh and present or build on that as well. But to your point, you just evolve as you evolve.
Totally. And you get more hyper focused on your pathway. Like, this is what it's going to look like. This is how it's going to go. And you can just, when you get that, like, you're like freaking laser beamed, that's it. And so everything else that comes along with it, then you can just build things around it that are more robust and automated. So you just make the company a lot better, all in all. And then it frees you up for more coaching and really like doing all the work stuff with the clients.
But ultimately, you guys have designed your businesses for all your one-on-one, just being present one-on-one and not where you're so automated that people feel like, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Automated in the sense of just like admin, that processy stuff that we're like, just like, oh my God, if we eat more paperwork, I'm going to freak out because we both hate that shit. It just bugs you down. Right. But yeah, it frees up more time. And also too, it's like we also reaching where people just don't want one-on-one. If they want like a group setting, that was now available. And because some people like the group mentality more so the community of it, which that's always available, but the customized coaching is always one-on-one for sure.
Well, we definitely have to talk once we've stopped this session of recording. Because girlfriend's got some goals.
Can't wait.
So my last question I want to ask you is, now that you've seen this evolution of your business and getting, you know, and even though we're still, you know, for all intents and purposes, still in a pandemic for what it's worth, just because people, you know, it's just what it is. Where do you know, because you've kind of taken an every 3 to 5 year kind of stage of things in your own, like, oh, I gotta like do something else. Oh, I gotta, and of course you can't predict.
I know
what that's going to look like. I mean, you may turn around and go, I really want to open a brick and mortar place.
You know, I feel like when you're used to that mentality, like you're used to the walls, you're used to a team, you think like that's the way. And even when you try to go online, you still try to do weird shit like that and bring that in, which is not needed really. Like you're just babysitting more basically. So it's like
a lot more overhead.
Yes, for no reason. It's like if we were bored and online coaching was flying and we were good and we kind of scaled it to the point where we wanted to, and we had some like boutique gym that we just kind of threw together, like that would be probably very low maintenance. But I can't see another huge establishment going up at all, ever, just from where you come from and the stress of that, as opposed to what it is now. Like it's night and day when you go online, like does not compare whatsoever.
Well, no, here's the irony is when we met and then
Mhm.
when we all talked,
Yeah.
we talked about this. I mean,
Mhm.
I talked about certainly with plenty of my friends who were in all aspects
Yeah.
of yoga, Pilates, boxing, whatever. And
Yeah.
I was saying to everybody, take it to technology, go on Zoom, teach your
Yep.
classes. People need you. And it was fought against. I was like, well, you're not very like, and I mean, I don't understand why it's right in front of you. It's just the
Yeah.
opportunity is there. People will grab onto it like a mouse to cheese. Like just go for it. A
It's
lot of
super,
people still never did. They
you know,
never did.
that also that jump to online is also a completely different animal, how you have to run things.
Mm-hmm.
And the processes what you have to do online, even with like market, everything is vastly different. So I
Mm-hmm.
could see, like, if we didn't do it, we probably had the first year was probably the most difficult, just relearning those processes. So I could see the resistance from those people who were like, nah, because they probably see that this is translating it. It's difficult,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
when face to face, you're used to that connected. Like you think that's the only thing you value is
Yeah.
like just one-on-one time. Whereas no, it's like times a million actually, but they really have to like get prepared for that, you know?
No, and listen, I mean, we all, what I do is so
Yeah.
touchy feely, blah 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 blah. I can't, even when I was doing my very first business post when COVID hit, which was my hair coloring process of getting on
Yeah.
FaceTime with people. We weren't even Zooming yet, getting on FaceTime and creating this
Yep.
custom color and sending it door to door and then doing this walk it through process.
Yeah.
Very different than having somebody in my chair. No question.
Yep. Yep.
But I also understand, like anything for any of us, doing things uncomfortable is what stretches us and it gets you to the other side of it. And who you guys are today versus
Yes.
who you were back November, December, no
Yeah.
question has grown monumentally, because I can hear the comfort in you,
Yeah.
even in just your speaking with me, let alone talking about it. I
Yeah.
know that those last handful of months were huge,
Mm-hmm.
a
To-
huge root. I can
yeah.
feel the relief
Oh yeah. Well, they're also very
and
affirming.
confidence.
Like when you, because obviously when you seek to do something new, right? Like you hope and pray it sticks, like throw the spaghetti on the wall, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, and affirming more so, and it just keeps affirming itself. So I think now we're in total. We just had our 3rd-year anniversary of online, solely online, right? So now it's like cruising, which is awesome, and then it's just from here clients referrals. I feel like the community is really building itself, which also helps a
Yeah.
lot. Because when you are like, let's say you're at home isolated, going to work, going home, don't have much, like you are seeking out a community of like mind to keep you going and remain accountable, and having that coach just like at your fingertips, which
Yeah.
helps. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
So
100%. Well, and it's
mhm.
interesting because as you're talking, I was thinking about like what I was doing leading up to the pandemic. I was
Yeah.
a Beachbody person. I had
Okay.
the Beachbody membership.
Sure.
So I had access to all those videos and could just turn on
Yep.
my computer. I had plenty of CDs or whatever to, everything from my flagship Pilates program, which is a cross between boxing, ballet, and Pilates,
Love.
to, like original Windsor Pilates, kind of like, do you remember the Windsor Pilates program?
My God.
Hello.
The OGs, man. Like
The OGs, man, straight up from here from LA, like serious,
yes.
and even with all that, I mean, that's an interesting thing because I think Beachbody really got hurt during the whole pandemic, ironically, because of so many more people coming online, which is
100%.
fascinating. They should have soared. And I don't think that happened.
I'm not. There's no hate on Beachbody. If you like it, you dig it, you go for it. You stick to it with what you like. But I feel like when the big boys came in online, they're bringing a lot more to the table. You know, that's why it kind of like dimmed, like their light dimmed a bit, you know?
When you say the big boys, what do you mean?
I just mean like professionals, right? Like, I'm not saying like tooting Jake and I's horn, but professionals who are educated and like can really get shit done and really change lives. When they crossed over, it's over. Like any basic online, right? Like it's over.
Well, it's interesting because I want to keep names out of it, but I almost want to mention them. Two of their biggest people who were part of Beachbody, who had their biggest programs. One of those two have been my clients.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
And they're no longer associated with that.
I could totally see it. And because I feel like people need more at those points. They need the whole package when you're at home and you go through some shit like we just went through the past 2.5 years, like that just doesn't cut it anymore. So and they have to replace what they were doing in life with online. So if that didn't match, it was going to go away, you know?
I agree with you completely. And it's interesting because it takes me full circle back to the reason why it wasn't a meniscus thing. The meniscus was a catalyst. Conversations with like you and Jake were like layering that onion previously. Like you were like the bagel that got toasted, and then the meniscus was the cream cheese, and then that's related to food, but it really isn't. The truth is then I finally realized I no longer am willing to carry all this weight on my shoulders of everybody else's shit.
100%, dude. 100%.
And that was the real, like, bye you, I'm out.
So good. Have to. You got to do it for yourself always. Good for you.
Yeah.
But then you feel lighter and you're just doing your own shit, which is awesome.
Yeah. So I definitely am I'm definitely in the, even when I trip on limited beliefs or managing expectations or what other people think, I'm like, come on, Felice, I'm on that past the 2-year mode. I'm ready for that 3rd year stuff to not to rush things along like the next 7 to 10 months. No, that's not what I'm saying.
No,
but I'm ready to build on that success.
Yeah, you're growing. So you're just like, which is good. That's what you want. You always want a growth mindset instead of the stifled or backwards. Always. I love it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I also had said to the person who I just interviewed and going on when we met, I had made that decision very early on when this country shut down and we were being faced with a worldwide pandemic. I was like, man, people are either going to sink or they're going to become super, super wealthy, whatever that meant, fiscally, mentally, growth-wise, investment in themselves. And I said, and that's the train I'm getting on. I don't know how that looks. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but that's the train I'm getting on. And I honestly took it to the 1929 crash, because I was like, all right, I know that I grew up like in the, the 70s recession and the 2008 shit, but and I know how that affected my family. This to me is like more of a this is like the 29 crash of pandemic stuff. And I was just like, I've got to grow how uncomfortably that means. And technology, as we both know, when I told you, I don't know how to plug this thing in, so I don't know how we're going to do this podcast.
Exactly. Who the fuck knows that? You don't know until you do it. 100%. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Little did I know how I was going to draw in 2, great female producers who were going to say, of all people, you've got to do this podcast thing, and, and like I said, when this podcast airs, I think we're going to be like number 51, 2 or 3 episode. And that is mind blowing. And everything else, this shedding, letting go, all the things, the kicking it to the curb in the
Yeah,
ass, whatever you want to call it. So,
totally. Congratulations.
well, first off, I want to say congratulations to you because I can also honor you for all the growth and accomplishment that you have created and manifested. I
Yeah.
mean, I get chills because I can think like here we've been kind of like doing our own thing, but in our own quiet way, like a parallel thing. And it really like a friendship that came out of it, the growth, the transformation
Oh,
on
yeah.
all of us, the
Oh, yeah.
butterflies that we're becoming,
Yes.
have always been, but just transforming into so much greater.
Yeah.
I just want to applaud you. I want to applaud you and Jake for that. I want to thank you for all your
Oh,
inspiration, for your love, for the
yeah.
friendship that we've created, the
Same here.
power, the power that, I mean, we still have never met in person, but I feel like lifelong friends.
Oh, for sure. Lifers. Yeah. 100%. Yes.
Yeah,
And your year
so
three,
powerful.
your year three is over. It's gonna be game over.
Unbelievable. If you're looking to be inspired, I hope that this conversation did that for you and that that it's something that like has you leaning in and leaning towards because life to me is about like living the best life we can live, and it all does start with our health and the freedom to think clearly, move our body smoothly, and be able to be in touch with so many things. Listen, my takeaway that came out of just these weeks of working with Rachel and being in transformation journey is I'll leave you with this and why I titled it Life is a Sculpture. It's nude or it's not. You know, our health is our everything. That's why they say health is wealth. And I have a very science mind along with an artful connection of like beauty and people and what makes people tick, and what I've walked away from learning and my takeaway on this that is a light bulb moment is that our heart, our breathing is everything. Our being able to not be imprisoned in fat, to be perfectly honest, is everything. And we need to really wake up to those things and have these conversations. And why I say life is a sculpture, it's nude or it's not, because I ironically deal with a lot of nudity in my professional life. And I can honestly say my wake up call this week was after having the realization that my breathing and my weight is associated to things that are so important to me, like intimacy. And I realized that I had been a prisoner of those things, that I had no idea. Like Rachel says, you don't know what you don't know. Well, I didn't know that I was a prisoner to my weight and my breathing, limiting me in what was possible. And now that I'm eliminating this weight and this fat out of us being imprisoning in my organs, that I'm able to breathe and experience things differently. And the reason why I openly share that with people is because I think we need to wake up to this conversation that's very authentic, very organic. Why I do this platform while I'm leaving a very long-winded wraparound, because if we don't have these very basic conversations about things that are important, then we do things differently that don't have positive outcomes. So let's have positive outcomes. Let's get focused. Let's commit. Let's commit to our health, being our wealth, being able to breathe better, think better, be more intimate, be more free in our bodies to be and do healthier things. And one thing leads to another. It's literally like putting Legos together or building a mountain, climbing a mountain. It's possible. Just live into it, lean into it, and let's be it. I hope this resonates with you. Look forward to you joining us next week on the Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast, where the spirit is young, the soul is wise, and the life stories are vast. I look forward to you joining me next week with my guests. And meantime, listen, share, subscribe, and do be a part of the Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast, because this is about life being a sculpture, and it's nude or it's not. And there's more to that where we have lots more conversations to come. Bye for now. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Much love. Bye for now.